Hello, in this tutorial we will be discussing how to scrap a website, and since our use cases we will be scraping the various universities website and fetch the data, and then we will store that data into MongoDB. And once data is stored, then we will build web API using using Node.js, and then our chatbot will communicate with API and fetch the data using the API. So let's start it. So first what we need is basically we need to use pip install for Scrapy. So I'm going to use launch a Visual Studio Code, and I have all my projects set up. So as you can see, we can say pip install Scrapy. Since I already have installed the Scrapy, so I'm going to cancel it. So once the Scrapy is installed, so then next step is so this is I just build the Scrapy for a University of Waterloo. So let's go on the top. So what we need is we need to import the Scrapy package just using this import Scrapy. The next line is what I'm doing is I'm importing my model, so which is basically mapping the data from website to the database. So let's see my model here. I have here my model, and I'm going to show the model is called item, so which is this one. So this is my model is FAQ class. So FAQ class take the instance of Scrapy dot item, and then it map each field with the my model. So I have a first question. It's gonna map the question to the Scrapy field to question, and then answer to the Scrapy field to answer, and the university ID, of course, Scrapy field to field. So they are in order, so same order which I will be passing the value in. So let's go into the Waterloo file, and in Waterloo file, as you can see, I'm importing my model FAQ class, and then once that is imported, then we can declare our class. So this is Waterloo spider class, so it takes the instance of Scrapy, and then I need to give a name of this is my crawler name. So I'm giving a Waterloo. The name is Waterloo. Of course we can give any name, but however, since this is University of Waterloo, so I'm giving my crawler name as Waterloo. Then allow domain is the domain which we are scrapping from. So this is a University of Waterloo.ca, and this is my start URLs. This is array of URLs, so I will be passing just one URL for now. However, we can pass the multiple URL to fetch. So all we have to do with the commas, then pass the second URL. So for now, for this demo I will be using just a single URL. Custom settings has a feed URI, so this is I'm using. So in this tutorial I will be saving the data into CSV file. So I have a temp folder, and under temp folder waterloo.csv, so all the data will be stored in CSV file. So as you can see, the Waterloo CSV right now is empty, so everything will be there. So the next is a parse method. Parse method take basically the two parameters, self and response. So self is a reference to this class, and response is which the response we get from the Scrapy back. So in our response, we will get the full page response from the Scrapy, and then we have to parse that response using the XPath. So let's have a look. So I'm going to visit this URL on a University of Waterloo. Let's see where we are. Here is University of Waterloo. So this is my URL which I'm going to fetch it. So I'm interested in this section, so let's reload the URL first and see what we get. Okay, so this is my URL. So I'm, let's say, going into the first section is applying. So I'm going to inspect the element, inspect this section using the Google Chrome. So this is my okay, so this is my whole container. So in this container I will be this is my container. In this container, expandable content, so I will be reading each question and answer. So I need to fetch this data and then store in CSV file. So let's see. First I need to just get the ID of the container. So the selector will be class name, so I'm going to use expandable content in the class name, so that's my parent selector. So so in my for each loop, this is my for loop. Basically in for loop I'm using xpath for our my parent class, which is a dev, and it has a selector class equal expandable content, which is this one. And then then I will be iterating each child within this container. So my each child will be like, let's say it has a ID colon dash 50. So I will be basically parsing the data because it has some separator as well, so I need to ignore that. So I will be using this column ID. So let's take this one, let's go to my code back, and then I say okay, my each child which has a class, a selector class colon 50. So I will be iterating, and then in my item then I get the whole div container. So I get basically this whole div container. So now I need to clean this div container. So it has a question, and of course it has an answer. So question is inside h3 tag and the answer is in paragraph. So it has a multiple paragraph. So let's see how I can do it. So h3, so for question I will be doing it, my xpath is h3, and give me the text for h3. So this gonna be my question, it's gonna map to the question, my model, and then answer is gonna be my paragraph. As we can see here, my first paragraph is, I'm just interested right now first paragraph, so I will be reading my first paragraph. So this is my first paragraph, and then university ID is gonna be hard coded, of course. So let's see how it looks. So so I'm going to run it now. Let's see how it's gonna look in terminal. All we do is basically we say Scrapy and then the crawler name. So okay, so this is university. So in my system, my Scrapy is not mapped for environment variable, so that's why I'm using the full path. However, if you have environment variable set, so you don't need a full path, but I'm using the full path Scrapy crawl, and that's the crawler name, which is Waterloo we have right here. So I'm going to run it, and it's gonna fetch the data, parse the data for these xpath, given xpath, and then it's gonna store into this CSV file. Let's see how it is. I'm going to save the file. Let's save it, and then let's run. So this will be running. It's gonna take a couple of minutes. Let it go, and once completed, then we will see the data in our CSV file. It's still running and almost done. Okay, so we can see our response status is 200, which is good. 200 means we all good. And then we have total count 14. So we fetch 14 questions and answers. So let's go over to CSV file. So here it is. So this is the data. We map it actually with our model. Our question is, how do you apply for admission? Our answer is application to Waterloo. All different program have different. So this is not a complete answer, as you can see, because since I'm just reading the first paragraph, it has a second paragraph as well. So if I read all the paragraphs, so then I have a complete answer. So then how do you apply for early admission? So let's say, how is it? Waterloo doesn't have early admission process, or made from January to depending on the program. So this is give you the whole basically the answer. Okay, so that's good. So I have a data right now for University of Waterloo. So let's take a look at another use case, University of Toronto Mississauga campus. I have this one, University of Toronto, sorry, .ca, and this is the URL. So I'm going to just take a look. This is University of Toronto. So University of Toronto, it has like these sections. So I'm interested about these sections, so I'm going to fetch the data, as you can see here. So this is our whole section. So I'm just going to, okay, so I need to basically read all these div tag, which has these panel space panel dot default. So that's our all the sections which has a question and answer, and the parent of course is a panel group. So this is our whole parent group. So let's go take a look at our University of Toronto crawler. So is the same. I'm importing the Scrapy, and then I have FAQ model map, and then here the name is a UTM, my crawler name, and allowed domain is a University of Toronto.ca, and this is my fully qualified URL as just a single URL, as you can see here. And then I have my CSV file gonna be the UTM CSV file, which is stored under here. So right now is a blank, as you can see here. So let's take a look next. Okay, so in my parse method, I'm passing the two parameters, self and response. So in response, we will be parsing the data. So my parent is a panel group, as you already seen it, and then I'm gonna iterate each panel space panel default. That's my XPath for the class selector. So I'm gonna iterate all these one. And then once I iterate, then I am interested with this the question, which is which has the parent h4, and then it is and then it's part of the anchor tag. So let's take a look how we are gonna pass it. So we have our okay, so we have a panel heading h4 and anchor tag. So we have a panel heading, this is the one. So the panel heading has a h4 and then anchor tag, and then we have a question inside inner text. So this is what we are doing, is we are getting the inner text and extracting it. That's our question, and answer is our same panel collapse. This is our selector class, and then we have a div panel body and then paragraph parameters. So let's take a look here. So this is our we have a this is our panel question, and then this is our panel collapse is a parent div, then it has a child as a panel body, and then it has a multiple paragraph. So we are reading, I think, just first, okay, at this moment. Or we can get rid of the p, and then we can get everything. So this is how it is. So let's for this sample stick with the first paragraph for now. So okay, so this is it's mapped to the answer, and the university ID is hard coded as well. So I'm going to give it a go, and let's see. Okay, let's run my University of Toronto crawler. So it's running it. Okay, we are fetching the data, as I can see. Our status code, which we are interested with, status code is a 200, which is good. It means no error came, so everything is good. And then I have a next is I need to know the count. So here is item scrap count is 46. So 46 question has been fetched. As I can see here, I'm going to see here a few of them here. Okay, here is my first question 503, which is says, are there vaccine clinics at U of T? Answer, the University of Toronto is hosting a COVID-19 vaccine. Okay, so let's take a look at our CSV file and see we have all the data there. So this is our University of, okay, so here. So how are the courses delivered? Answer, student have the options. Okay, so this is our complete. So this is how we are getting all the data. So we got all the data for the various universities. Now the next step is how we can store in any database. So in our use case, we are storing the data in MongoDB. So what you can do is you can get your free account in Atlas. So all you need to do is go to the MongoDB Atlas website here. So you can just get your free Atlas account that will give you the 500 meg free space, which is more than enough to build any like your prototype application or any demo application. So I have this all set up, and I have my database name store, and collection is called university. So as you can see here, university.collection, and I have all the data and is being stored here as well. So let's go back to our code and see what we need to what is required to store the data in MongoDB. So first, I think couple of things we need to do is we need to do in setting.py file, we need to configure our pipelines. So pipeline has a name, so our name is our project name, and a pipeline, this is our name, and then this is my the Atlas the URL which is I'm connected to, and then my database name is store. So these couple of things I need to configure here. And then next is a pipeline.python. So in pipeline, basically I'm putting a collection name. So this is a pipeline class, and collection name is a university, and then it has a some init method which basically it pass the couple of parameters, MongoDB URI and DB name, and URI is your host name, and then we have a it's getting the from setting file, it's getting the URI and MongoDB, which we already seen here. Our setting file, we had a URL and MongoDB here, so it's reading from there, and then it's being assigned to like of course is here. And then now I'm going to make a in our okay, so there are two methods, which one is called open spider, other one is close spider. When we run the any crawler, so when the spider is open, it's gonna open the connection using, this is our client. Okay, so client, this is our MongoDB connection. So this is my whole connection string for the Atlas, and it's opening the connection, and then it connect to the database, and then once the the crawler is completed, it will close the connection. So making sure there's no connection open. So once the crawler is finished, it will close the connection, any open connections. Okay, the next is a process item. Process item, what it does is each time when we run a crawler, so I'll give you example here. So when it yielded each record, so it's basically insert into database. So this is a insert, this is actually database, the MongoDB command. So this is our database name and collection. So our db dot collection name, so collection is we have a university collection, and database is store, so we already provided and configure, and then it's gonna insert our each item, so is a dictionary of each item, and then it's gonna store it there. So when you configure everything, then the data will be stored in your MongoDB collection, and once the data is stored, then you can build your web API, or you can connect your app to direct to the MongoDB, and you can fetch the data. In our use case, we are using the web API using Node.js, and then we fetch the data, and then our chatbot communicate with web API. I hope you like this video, and let's see how we can build our chatbot next.
Hello, I'll be showing you how to get to Dialogflow Essentials, which we'll be using for the project. So first, obviously go on Google, search up Dialogflow Essentials. And then you should see a URL that looks like this. Click on it. Make sure you sign in with an account that you're okay with using for the project. So let me sign with my personal account. So for all intents and purposes, we already created a pre-built bot, but I'll be showing you each step of the way. So scroll down, that's how you create a new agent. And then you can enter your agent name, your language, your time zone, and so forth. Ignore the Google project and agent type, and then press create. Once you get that, you're gonna get the intents page. So you're gonna be only shown a default welcome intent. So create intent for your bot. Ours is university orientated, so we named our university question. So university question, if you mess up your name, you can change it, but make sure you save every time you make a change. So context and events you can ignore for this demo. Training phases, these are the questions the user may ask. So you add these. So some questions a person from university could ask is how our course is being delivered, how do you pay tuition, and so forth. Action and parameters and text response we'll be ignoring for now. I'll talk about it later. Alright, to start off, let's talk about the coding section now. So coding section is mainly Node.js, and we've given to you it on GitHub. So you just extract that file and open up in Visual Studio. So I'll be explaining the code now. So the config.js file is rather simple. You want to set your server URL to your MongoDB's connection string. That has been explained earlier in the video when we showed the MongoDB Atlas part. Now let's move on to index.js. This is where we run the code. So let's talk about imports. Using strict is not necessary. Just make sure your code is in order. You're going to want express. You're going to want body parser. I'll explain why later. And you're going to want config so you can get your URL and .environment to help that. Next, the reason you want body parser is because it allows you to send JSON and accept JSON, which is what we want. Now, as we know with Node, you can post and get. Get we don't really need for Dialogflow, but we do need post. So every time a user answers or asks a question, it's gonna go to this URL, and you can change it. However, to keep it simple, we're just gonna use \. So first we're gonna want it to go to main, where it's gonna take your request and response. The catch part isn't necessary, it's just a debug. You're gonna want to listen on port 3000. Now the main function is just used to connect to MongoDB. So this is from the configure file we explained earlier. Now the use new URL parser, you're gonna want to set to true. Use unified topology, you want to set to true. Now the try catch statement is used to make sure you connect to clients. And then if an error happens, it'll just explain the console for debugging purposes. Next, if it successfully connects to the client, it's going to go to the university search where we query our question. Now, this function is pretty simple, but let me explain it. So Dialogflow gives a specific request format, so you're going to want to check that later. We're going to have that in the documents in the description on how it sends and accepts. But for bare bones explanation, it's going to give you a query result and a query text in the body. And then from there, that's going to be the question the user gives. So now the collection part is explained in MongoDB Atlas. So we had a collection named university. Find one is essentially MongoDB's part of querying. And then you just set your question to be question to search. Now the function is used to catch any errors and if a question exists. Now let's say if an error occurs, we can essentially tell the end user that there's an issue with the bot and close the client, and we can also read what the error was. Now if the question does exist, we'll send them an answer in this format. So this is just saying at university the answer is blah blah blah. Now you close the client after that. Else, if you couldn't find the question and it's not an error, we can essentially just tell them we currently do not have that question in our database. Now this format, fulfillment messages, is one of many that Dialogflow has. There will be a document in the description explaining the various methods of sending messages back to Dialogflow, you can have cards that show image and a brief description. But for this purpose, we just want to send back text. That'll be all for this part. Okay, so if you're not wanting to look at documents to see how Dialogflow sends requests, you can just check here in the test console. You can look at diagnostic info. Now let's say if we ask a question, you can look at the diagnostic info, and then they'll show you how the request is sent. So that's why we were looking at query result and query text. That's where the question was being sent from. So you can also look at how the response is sent. This is where we sent our response. So to continue, let's open up the terminal. To run our code, it's already running, but let's close it. So this is the command you would need to run, get the server up and running. So for the purpose of this demo, we didn't do Heroku, but we did use ngrok. So search up ngrok, and ngrok just secures tunnels for a local host. So all you need to do really is just download it. So you just download, it'll give you a zip, and then you extract it, and then you run the application it gives you. So here is ours. So it's already running and it's doing okay. So let me just show you what you need to do first to get it like fully set up and proper. So let's close this. So you're gonna want to set this to 3000. It might already be set to that, but just to make sure. This is just to make sure that your local host, which is on 3000 port, is also here. So now let's go to Dialogflow. So fulfillment, you're gonna look at the left side of the page, and the intent, it's like right there. And then here you're gonna want to put your fulfillment. You're gonna want to use the HTTPS because Dialogflow doesn't allow anything else. So then make sure you save, which is at the bottom here. So that's pretty much it for the project. So now we can just test it. All right, to continue, let's just let's input can students visas apply for co-op. The answer is international students are eligible for all co-op programs. So that's pretty much it for Dialogflow. Now you can also look at training. So you have the option of uploading your own training. You can also look at past conversations. Now let's say, can visa students apply for a co-op? So let's say this was properly mapped to the right intent. We can improve it. Now let's say if it wasn't, you could either change it to something else or you could trash it, but it is correct, so let's approve it. So once that's done, you can also look into analytics. So you can look at your sessions, the interactions with your bot, and so forth if you're interested in that stuff. Let's look into going deeper into Dialogflow essentials. So now, once you click this link, so get started. So Dialogflow Essentials is what we've been working with. CX is more advanced agent type. So let's look into Essentials for now. So now I'm gonna talk about the basic concepts. So integrations. This is essentially something that allows you to integrate with different platforms. So you can integrate with Messenger, Line, Slack, Telegram, so forth. You can also look at all concepts. So this is just the overview. So learning how to build agents, so forth. Now, if you're interested in entities, what we've been working with is system.any. So that basically means allowing anything to pass through. However, you can restrict it to specific type and entry. Now, context, if you're wanting to learn more about how contexts work, essentially you're given a question, it maps to a tent, and then it follows through the flow. Now you can also look at custom events. So you can create custom events. So this is how you could invoke an event using Node. That'll be all for now.